Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast. My name is Steve, and I'm joined by.
Glad to be here.
Hey, Ronnie. So, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about various things. I think our main thing is going to be love across the how it's expressed across the African continent. So that's going to be the main theme going into today's podcast, I think.
Right. We're going to talk about love, as others will call it, Rudo, Pyar, Utando, others will say, and Amor in other languages. So we're going to talk about love from an African perspective, just like Ronnie just said early on. We're going to talk about love from an African perspective, and we're also going to have a word to say about how love is viewed globally. Like what do people expect out of love, right? All right. So what can we say about love?
Well, love in general.
Yeah, in general.
Well, it's a great feeling. It's a necessary feeling. Love is ubiquitous. It is found all around the world, and it's expressed differently all across the world, based on the different cultures and traditions that there are in the world. Love is expressed one way in China, and another way in Brazil, and one way in South Africa, and another way in the United States of America. So there's so much we can say about love, but one thing that we can't deny is the fact that love is necessary. Love is vital, actually, for the world to carry on and be extant.
Yes, I will join you on that. Like, love is necessary. Love, I believe love is what has sustained the world for where we are right now. I think every action that has been taken throughout the course of history, there was a love to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's a love between a man and a female, but there's also a patriotic love, love of your country, love of your nation, love of the people that's around you, a brotherly love, a sisterly love, and all these kind of things. So I feel like love in a way has its own roles. You know what I mean? Like, has its own roles. So in a way, I feel like love has different facets. You know what I mean?
Right.
Love has different facets, like just as I mentioned, in terms of patriotism, love of the country. So most of the actions that were taken throughout the course of history, had some love in it. You know what I mean? Like the wars that we fought, everything. Like the world is what it is today. To a certain extent, love has impacted certain decisions. Right? So, as we talk about love, do you think in the modern society that we live in currently, would you classify love as overrated?
I don't think love can ever be overrated. I think we give
from
it
different perspective, from a relationship perspective or from a generalized perspective. Do you think love can be classified as overrated?
I think love is never overrated. I stick to my answer. I think love can never be overrated. We can never really have enough love in the world. I think we actually need more. I think love is given its due importance in different facets of our everyday lives. I definitely do not think that love is overrated in any way, be it in an amorous relationship or in a relationship between like you mentioned, in a patriotic relationship or any other. I don't think love is overrated. I think we have the exact equal amount of love that we need, and we could definitely use more. What do you think?
Well, personally, I think that from a patriotic standpoint, love is necessary. Love is necessary because if you have to stand from a patriotic standpoint, like especially when you have to defend your nation, for instance, when the soldiers, when they wear their uniforms to go and fight, on a foreign land, I think it's mainly because of the love of the country that they have, and also out of the essence of protection, especially when when we talk about, like, from a masculinity perspective, that instinct, that protectory instinct, that protection instinct kicks in. That's why you see people actually going in like just like for wars, for fighting for a certain virtue. And I feel like from that perspective, love is rather necessary. But from a love perspective, do I consider love overrated? I would consider love overrated to a certain extent. Why would I say love is overrated to a certain extent? Because we are called in this world here, because from what has been given to us as an education, they have told us that. When I'm saying they, I'll be saying in general, like the education that we have through schools, through the societal norms, and through the way the society is evolving right now. Like it has been put in our head that love can only be put in, can only be respected, like when you love somebody, there are certain things that you should now abide to. Either comes marriage, certain norms that you should abide to, and which in a way could defy our traditionals, like our traditions from an African perspective. The reason why I'm saying now love has been overrated, because if we look at it from an African perspective, when we talk about love, from a masculine perspective also, when we talk about love, the men back in the days were in position to wed or to be in a relationship with multiple women. These are certain practices that not everybody condones, nowadays, right? But at the same time, there was that. But nowadays, everybody feels there's that negative sense whereby people think you cannot have more than a certain amount of number of women, and through love you have to do this and that. Through love, I feel like if you take from an animalistic perspective, for instance, what I mean, because we are all animals and all that. And the reason why I'm saying love is overrated is because the human race, has gotten to a point whereby he can express love through the language that he speaks. So he places love to a certain pedestal. He says the love to a certain pedestal because that's the best feeling that everybody can have. But from an animalistic perspective, like when you see the animals, the way they react, do you think that animals love one another, or is just out of necessary instinct that they have? Like a masculine, when he sees a female gender, he wants to reproduce with her. But do you think out of the intelligence that has been put into human nature, that in a way it has given love a certain importance, or it normal, or whilst it was just meant to be something platonic, if I have to use the sense?
Okay. I think when we're talking about love, putting forth and such a hypothesis, we need to really contextualize it.
Yeah.
Now, in that sense, if we're talking about animals, so the question is, do animals feel love?
Feel love.
What we're saying.
Or they just act out of instinct,
Okay. I really don't think that it's just instinct. I've seen a mother chimp run to save her little child from aggressors and really embrace that child and take that child into her arms in a protective manner. I think the need to protect has to be embedded in love to some extent. I don't think that we will go out of our way to protect and provide if we don't feel at least a modicum of love. So to answer your question plainly, yes, I do think that animals also love. I don't think it's just instinct.
All right, but getting back to the core of my question, do you think love is overrated in that sense? The way I just put it out there, like human beings nowadays, you know what I mean? Like you spoke from an animalistic perspective by saying that the animals, they have the, once they have that, they feel protected, they feel like they feel like they want to protect their offspring, when they're in face of danger, for instance, right? But then, from a human perspective, I think every animals, because a human, like we can say, like every being put on this earth has that sense of protection. They want to protect, a certain one of their close ones and all that. I think that's just an inborn nature that every being has. You know what I mean? Like a thing that has come out of you, a things that you've given life to. I think there's just that natural instinct that you give. Now, the reason why I'm saying is love overrated from a human perspective is that the way they contextualize it, like in terms of, like nowadays, which we have love songs, you know what I mean? Like that, the way we communicate love, you know what I mean? Like from the animalistic, the reason why I'm trying to say is love overrated is because it's due to the intelligence that has been given to man, to the mankind, the intelligence that we have. Due to that intelligence that we have, do you think we have, in a way, extrapolated the feeling of love? I don't know if you're getting where I'm trying to come from. That feeling of love through the words, through the intelligence that we use, and the way we look into love. Of course, every beings have a way of expressing their love, but the intelligence that has been given into the human being, do you think in a way they're just saying, okay, through the love, because love in a way has now been intricate by like our words, the way we talk about it, the way we think of it, the feeling, how we express it, you know what I mean? Do you think that the human intelligence in a way over exaggerated the feeling of love, or love is just a natural instinct that every being should have on earth, but then due to the intelligence we now want to use it for different causes and everything?
I don't think the human intelligence is entirely capable of containing the true meaning of love.
Okay.
So I think we humans are actually weak when it comes to that. I think human beings, in their quest to want to understand what love is, will definitely fall short.
Will definitely fall short.
I think love is an unfathomable feeling. I think love is an abyss of which we will never know the bottom. I think that's what love is. Love is so intricate, love is so mysterious that the human intelligence cannot even begin to comprehend what it truly is.
All right.
Or what a person in love or an animal in love is fully capable of accomplishing. That's what I think.
Okay.
How do you see it?
Yeah, I feel like to me, I just feel like, of course, I do agree with you to a certain extent, but I feel like the human intelligence, as in a way, we have all in a way like placed love at a higher pedestal, because I feel like a human being acts out of an animalistic behavior. You know what I mean? We have certain instinct that has been given into us, protecting. From a male perspective, protecting, building, and conquer. You know what I mean? All these things, I feel like that's what has been given into us. And that feeling of love that we have, and the way love is now being interpreted in this modern society, like for instance, whereby you get in the sense whereby people tell you can only love one person, like you can only have one partner. But we all know that rhetoric is not true, because you can fall in love with a multiple women. For instance, from a male perspective, you cannot only fall in love with one person. But I feel like as a human instinct, you can have the same feeling not only with one person, with numerous person, right? But then when they tell you that you cannot do that, you know what I mean? Like, because they put that value on love. Whilst love is a natural instance that you can have, but then with the intelligence in the way they kind of block, there's this blockage that they put in us, whereby they tell you can only have one wife, you can only have one woman, you like you can only have one wife, for instance, or you can only have you can only love one person. Okay. But we all know that the natural feeling of a human being, you can have the same feeling about a numerous amount of person. which comes down to a point of knowing what are the necessary roles, compared to the masculine gender and the feminine gender. You know what I mean? The masculine gender always thinks from a perspective whereby he thinks he wants to protect. You know what I mean? That's like his natural gender, and to multiply, if we have to use the sense.
Right.
That's why there's that the rate of infidelity. If we have to use the term, like the rate of infidelity is higher to men compared to females, right? The rate of infidelity, because that in a way is part of the male nature, if I have to use the term. The male nature, he's meant to reproduce. You know what I mean? And there are different researches that will tell us otherwise. You know what I mean? But that's where my position actually holds. That love, in a way, has been placed to a certain extent its importance, but out of the animalistic human nature that, like, the beings that we have, we know that love operates certain ways compared to what the society has put in our minds and all that. That's where I'm actually coming from. Like, I don't know if you have anything to add upon that.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I think that we can't really put perimeters around love.
Yeah.
We cannot contain.
We
love.
can't. Yeah, sure.
I don't think we can. So I think I understand what you mean. So if we're talking about intelligence, I think it's intelligence coupled with a sense of Christendom, Christianity, so to speak, or also maybe coming off what certain people have felt. Because I don't think we can deny the fact that when you love, right, especially if it's an amorous nature of love, you want that love to be requited. You want that love to be returned, correct? Now, if that's the case, and you truly love that person, you don't really want to share that person in a certain way with any other person. Imagine you have a woman you really love. You cannot possibly fathom her being in another man's arms.
Exactly.
And just because she loves you, she cannot bear the thought of you being in another woman's arms. I think that's where that comes in. I think that, a man is meant for one woman, and then one woman is meant for a man. Then, of course, like I said in my premise, love is very intricate. Love is abstract. The human being cannot really begin to comprehend what it is, because you cannot comprehend fully something that existed even before you came into the world. I think love is a powerful feeling like that. It's like death. You can't have control over it. Human beings do not do not decide to fall. It's not a decision you make. You don't meet a woman and you decide, okay, I think I'm going to make the conscious decision to fall in love with this person. It happens. That's why it's beyond our intelligence, because we cannot control it. We cannot contain it, just like death. We cannot contain and control it, because there are so many things about death that we don't know. And I think it's the same thing about love. I feel like when it comes to love, love is universal, and what we know or what we think we know about love is the tip of the iceberg. That there is so much to it that we cannot fully begin to comprehend.
All right. So, what I'll say about that is that, from what you mentioned earlier on, like whereby you say you cannot. You can. It's hard for you to accept, like, the woman that you love to be in another man's hand, and vice versa. I will look at it from this perspective, which I totally agree with you. Like, many people will not accept that.
Right.
Like a man, like your woman being another man's hand and all that, and that is why you will see back in the days. Let us go back into time. Back in the days, you see men when they used to fight. It was out of pride.
They used to fight?
When they used to go for wars, when they used to go for battles and all that, people used to fight. That's why I mentioned earlier about the protecting instinct, The reason why we human beings were created, women being the vulnerable one and man being the protector, The reason why certain strength were given to man and certain strength were given to women, because women, they actually operate out of a survival mode, because a woman can easily adapt, right? When the situation comes tougher, a woman can easily adapt. But what's in a man, the instinct that he has is a protection, is a protective ability, to a sense whereby I love this woman here, and I know this the second person loves in return. What do? I will try to eliminate that person. I will try to kill that person, right? And that's why you see, like in most of the wars when they were fought back in the days, you see everybody would say, kill all the able-bodied men, like all the boys, all the children, like kill them all, because they are the ones who are in position to protect, you know, and they know that a female, no matter what comes, rain comes thunder, she will find a way to adapt and leave the women and leave the children. So from that perspective, where I'll come from is that the female gender, you know what I mean? Like a man will not accept, you know what I mean? A man, since he's a protector, he will not accept. But a female, this is not only my perspective, but I think that's how it has been throughout the course of history. You know, whereby you see kings have multiple women. You know, the powerful man, he was always encircled with multiple, because they know that the female's instinct, you know, she might not like it, but her instinct is she can accept multiple people. You know what I mean? That's why you see in Africa, like our parents, you know, we don't even need to go generations back. Like even our parents, you know, those who just come before us, you know, they had multiple women. But you cannot say the same thing otherwise, you know, about the women having multiple men. But men were in position to have multiple women. Because I feel like a man, I think that the ability of loving like different multiple women at the same time, I think that ability was only put into man. A man can love honestly. Because to be quite honest with you, I know
Okay.
that's a topic of debate. To be quite honest with you, I feel like a woman, when she's put in the position of cheating on you, when a woman decides to cheat on you, which means that she no more loves you. A woman is an emotional being. An emotional being in the sense whereby when she stands on a certain position, for her to move from one person to another person, she needs to be emotionally disconnected from the first person that she's been with. Whilst a man, on the other hand, he can love multiple ones. But a woman, when you find a woman doing this with multiple beings, you can tell that, okay, either she's mentally damaged or there's no, like she's a prostitute or something. That's why they always have those bad names like prostitute, because a woman doesn't have that ability, right? She doesn't have that ability of having multiple partners. But a man does have that ability. A man can love multiple people, but a woman, once she does it, it's out of nature. Because that's what it's not only, we're not only speaking out of a masculine mindset, but that's what reality has taught us. You know what I mean? Like a man being able to have more than one wife because he can handle. That's the capacity that has been given to us by the Creator, that a man can have multiple women. But on the other hand, a woman, it's very hard for her. Like once she starts cheating on you, just know that she no more loves you. Like once she starts having a multiple partner, you know, which is not okay, she's emotionally disconnected from you. Because a woman, for her to accept like another man to be in her, there's got to be that emotional connection. Okay. That's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from where I see, like, just like I just wanted to emphasize on the point that you mentioned, like a woman cannot accept. That's why I just wanted to interject, you know, from that perspective, that I think a man is the only being this is just me. Hey guys, this is just me. A man, this is my point of view. You guys, if you have any comments, if you have anything to say, please don't hesitate to share in the comments below, and yeah, you can have your point of view on that. But from what I say, a man is the only being, like when I talk about the masculine gender and the female gender, and the man is the only gender who can love multiple women at the same time. But a woman, she cannot do that. It's either she's got to say, okay, I'm emotionally connected with this person here. But once she starts going on the other person, just know that she's already disconnected emotionally, like with the first person that she's been with. So it's out of nature. You know what I mean? That's why in a year, a man can have multiple children, you know, with different women. But a woman, she doesn't have that luxury. A woman can only birth once in a year. But a man can birth 10 children. If he sleep with 10 women, all these children will be his. You know, that's why I feel like a man has that capacity in him. You know, that's where I come from. And what do you think? What do you think on my perspective? Like where I can?
I think it's a valid perspective. I think there is some truth to it. It definitely applies to many people in the world.
Yeah.
Definitely, there is some truth to it. But I cannot also sit here and try to pretend having mastery of the female nature, because I'm not a woman.
Sure.
I'm a man. I can
You're a
only
man.
speak from a man's perspective. I have known situations of women who were in love with someone but still went on to cheat on that person. So I will not say that it can't happen.
You know,
Yes,
it's not
it has happened.
like, let me tell you, if a woman still stays with you, right, while she's sleeping with another person, she's definitely going to stay out of interest. It's either you're a rich fella,
No.
and she's getting emotional needs from another person, but she's going to stay with a certain person out of interest. But because a woman, once she starts going out there and she's still with you, just know that there's no love. There's no love. It's either it's out of interest. It's either the person that she's with, she's giving him a certain protection, you know, she's giving a certain status, or she's getting something out of it, but she's not going to stay, you know, like, I love this person and I also love this person. Like, to me, like, I actually find it hard to believe, you know, unless you get another way. I don't know. I just find it hard to believe for a woman, like, once she's going out, once she starts doing that, but she stays with you, just know that it's either out of interest, or maybe she's just vile in a certain way, or she's got some cruel intentions and all.
It could be. It could be. It's possible. But like I said, I will not pretend to have this mastery over female nature, because I'm not a woman. And according to my experience, I have known women who have gone on to cheat on men they loved. It's a possibility. It has happened. And then they could come back and apologize to their man, you know, because the reason I feel you would come back and apologize to someone is because, you know, maybe you love that person and you made a mistake and you think you really want to be with this person and that was just a one-time thing, and, you know, you want to forget about it. But the fact is that it happened. Women have cheated before on men that they actually loved and respected, you know. And talking as a man, I feel like with most of these issues, right, of course we can try to generalize and talk about status quo and how things have been in the past, but the best thing that you can really have some kind of authority on is your experience. And I can only talk from experience. I have been in love before, and I'm a man. I've been in love before. And it has been very hard for me, being in love, to even consider being with anyone else other than that person I was with. They could have been the most beautiful woman in the world, but when you're truly in love, and I mean truly, I'm not talking about you think she's pretty, and I'm not talking about lust or limerence. I'm talking about true love. True love. I could not fathom the thought of being with another person because of that person. That's just how it was. I just couldn't fathom it. You could have put the most beautiful woman in front of me, and I would have said, she's beautiful, yeah. She's Miss Universe. She could have been Miss Universe. She's beautiful for another man, because I just don't love her like that. And I couldn't think that, okay, I love this person, but I think I can go ahead and, you know, have a baby with this other person and then this other person, and then life will just go on and it'll be okay. That is just not what I thought. I feel like some men, and of course I hate generalizing situations, but I feel like some men who are capable of doing this, maybe they like the women. I don't know if they really love the women, because when you love someone, you don't want to hurt that person. And the fact is, when you're in love and you're with someone who's in love with you, if you get with someone else, that person is going to be hurt. And love does not hurt. One who loves does not wish to intentionally hurt the person he's in love with. That's just how I see it.
Do you think love does not hurt, though? I think
love does not hurt intentionally.
Love does not, but I think love was built in that sense. You know, love, it's a mixed emotion in the sense whereby there is pain and there is, it's like a yin and yang, the yin yang thing. They need one another. They feed out of each other's energy from that perspective. Because I feel like love feeds out of the pain.
Yeah, of course, that's true.
Because I think through
But
love,
does love seek to hurt intentionally? Does love seek to hurt intentionally? Do you have the subject of your affection, who you truly and sincerely in love with, and you go ahead and do something, which in this situation is getting with another person, when you know clearly that it's going to hurt that person? Would you do that? Being with the woman that you're truly in love with, do you think you would go ahead and get with someone else?
okay, I will speak from a point whereby I would say when we talk of love, there are actually two people involved, right?
Yep.
Two people involved, and there are two hearts involved. You know what I mean? The level of love that you can have for a certain person may be different from the level of love. I don't think each individuals love one another. Like I don't think if it's feasible, correct me if I'm wrong, whereby the extent that you love a person and the love that you give is the same love that you are receiving. You can both be in love, but I feel like there's always one person who loves one more than the other.
Yeah.
And the person who happens to have to love the person lesser than the other is the one who has the ability to inflict the pain.
But is he in love?
Yeah, he's in love. Because that's what I'm saying, right? Based on the extent, like in the sense whereby I can love you, like I could love a woman more than she loves me. You know what I mean? But I think she loves me, and she thinks she loves me. Only the heart can tell.
Right.
Like who loves a person, who loves one more than the other, right? And I feel the person who happens to have a certain luxury of laying back, when it comes to love, is the one who actually inflicts the pain. And that's why I feel like love, in a way, feeds off that energy. You know what I mean? It feeds off the energy of pain, because through that, through
what
the
if,
yeah,
What if it's the man who's more in love?
yeah,
In this
and it's the
situation?
female that will inflict the pain.
No, but here we're talking about men.
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking about men being able to go out there and get multiple women.
Yeah.
What if it's the man who's in that position to where he loves the woman more than she loves him?
Well,
What do you do then?
I always feel like the man has that capacity, because a man, in a way, could reason. I'm telling you, believe me. A man can love, right? A man can love. He can be heads over heels over a certain woman, right? But you see his behavior is totally different. Because a man doesn't love out of emotions. A man, if he sees a beautiful woman, to be honest with you,
Right.
I don't know if love has that power, that huge, that strong power, which can cause a man, like, if he sees a beautiful woman, like, okay, let me just give a woman that you have been desiring. You're in love, right? A woman you have been desiring. She ticks all the, all the points on all the boxes on the table. She ticks all the boxes on the table, right? You fall in love with a certain woman, good, but that person, that desire, your just happens to come your way. She just happens to come your way, and she's the one who tells, hey, look, I love you, but you know that you got your wife at home, or you got your girlfriend or something like that. Believe me, your body will succumb. I don't know, but I don't know. You could tell me otherwise. Like our point of view can differ in that perspective. But I feel like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like a man is always in position of going otherwise. You know what I mean? Like he can cheat on his woman, but he still loves her. Like he still loves her. Like he can do anything for her. Like he loves her with all of his heart, but he can still cheat on his woman. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, you think it's not possible, right?
No.
You think it's not possible?
I did not say that. The world is full of possibilities.
The world's full of possibilities,
I
right?
think every scenario is possible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's it. I really have nothing more to add to.
All right.
to this
Okay.
issue.
So our topic is love.
Hmm.
You know, and love in different cultures. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about like, you know, before there was this cultural marriage. You know what I mean? Like you know, due to colonialism, slavery, and all these things. You know, due to colonialism, slavery, and all these things. Each culture had a certain way of getting married. Like I would say, like back in the days, there was arranged marriage. You know, arranged marriage, right? Do you think arranged marriage was? Because I know that there are still some cultures who are still doing, like some cultures in Africa, there is arranged marriage. Or you can go like in Asia, you see people still doing arranged marriage. You know what I mean? You know, the only independence of marriage, like you say, is probably in the Western world, or some African countries that have been westernized to a certain extent. You know, but arranged marriage is actually part of our culture. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think of arranged marriage?
In terms of it being good or bad?
Yeah, like in general, like what's your perspective of arranged marriage?
Okay. My perspective of arranged marriage or arranged marriages is that back in the days, people practiced it mostly for economical reasons and to create certain ties and links between families. You had a certain family that wanted to rise in ranks in the society in terms of power and raise their status. What they would do is seek to marry their daughter to a family with a high rank, with a high status,
Yeah.
right? So that in turn, they can then rise. Okay? It served that purpose back in the days. And I think some of those situations turned out well and some not so well. So if we look at the modern day, people can fall in love in the right, normal way. You know, a man would meets a woman, they get to know each other, they become enamored with each other, and then they fall in love. That situation can turn out well, and that situation can turn out horribly wrong. And when it comes to an arranged marriage, in the modern day, I think it's quite the same. I don't think it should be forced. I don't think a family has the right to impose their will on a person and say, no matter what, this is what's going to happen. I think the arranged part of it has to be lessened to some extent. The power that the families had back then to actually impose their will on a couple has to be diminished to where they can make a suggestion, an intelligent suggestion. Look at the situation we have. There's this young man or there's this young woman would like it for you guys to get together because, and if both parties agree, it's still arranged, then they can go forth. I think in that sense, it's okay. But I don't think that anyone has the right to force another person to get married to another.
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
Yeah. From that perspective, like, I will join you to a large extent because I feel like love, you know, like we were talking about love. Love is something that you feel, you know, it's something that doesn't get imposed on you. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that was the way our forefathers used to go about certain things. Whereby, you know, that's why you see like cousins who marry one another. You know what I mean? Like those kind of arranged marriage, which in a way was pretty much not fair. Like, you know, and you see like there was some arranged marriage that actually turned out to be good, and there was some arranged marriage that turned out to be horrific.
Right.
whereby you see the man is very abusive
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, or maybe the man has a Down syndrome, or maybe one of the partners has a Down syndrome, and they just get married out of financial interest.
Right.
In a way, it's like they offer the lady or the daughter like a sacrificial lamb, in a sense. It's like it being a daughter or it being the man. But I think the people who suffered a lot about this arranged marriage are pretty much the women.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because men were in the position to choose. You know what I mean? And I feel like, or maybe out of interest, people back in the days too, like between the fathers,
Mm-hmm.
they would discuss and they will decide upon the children. Maybe at times the decision wasn't really made out of the children, so it was the parents who decided for them, which I feel in a way was pretty much unfair. You know what I mean? Love is a natural feeling that everybody deserves to feel. It's a feeling that people, when you are put in this earth, at least you should experience love,
Right.
which is very necessary. So the arranged marriage aspect of it, I feel like in a way, to a great extent, not everybody, people were acting out of their beliefs, out of their culture, and they had to abide, and they didn't want it to be the bad seed, like the person who defied, culture, so they felt obliged, to abide to certain ways of doing. But I feel like arranged marriage was a very, 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 to a certain extent, there was no emotions. But then if I have to play the devil's advocate, if I have to look at it from a different perspective, arranged marriage prevented a lot of people to get divorced, for instance. Arranged marriage prevents a lot of people to get divorced. Why? Okay, the reason why I want to play the devil's advocate, because nowadays we know that the divorce rate nowadays is getting, it's over exaggerated now. It's now getting really ridiculous. So so the fact that the family gets involved, whereby who the auntie is, who's the grandma, who's the nephew, who's that and that and that, in a way, everybody felt involved into that marriage, and they didn't want it to see to fail. Like, okay, the reason why we're giving this daughter here, and families they'll feel more connected compared to a wedding whereby I'm in love with a certain individual and I'm going to marry her and all that, and it happened. But I mean, arranged marriage, what it did, it reduced the rate of divorce, if I have to say. Like, once you're married to a certain individual, you're bound for life.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that, in a way, it kept that family body, you know what I mean, whereby the children grew up in the household was those mommy and daddy, right? Which, of course, they might not have been loved, I don't know, but then there was still that masculine figure and a feminine figure, and they know how to evolve. The mother will nurture for the daughters, teach her how to be a good wife in the long run, and the father will take care of the man, like how to be a good man in the society when you grow up, and all that, how to be a protector, how to be a provider. So all these aspects, I feel like, from one extent, it was bad, the fact that not every individual will feel the love, But the thing what I find it ridiculous now is that people nowadays, when they get married, is there that feeling of, I can fall out of love, like the person that you were so infatuated with, the person that you love so dearly, and one day you just, okay, I no more love you, let's divorce. That's one thing that that's why I always feel like love has been overrated, because there's that possibility of falling out of it. You know what I mean? Is the love eternal, or it's just for a certain amount of time?
Now the question is, when you fall out, can you fall back into it?
Of course you can. Of course you can. But then, you see, is that feeling of you can fall in love and all that, does that feel like love in a way is really over-exaggerated, because it's just an emotion. Like, you can get angry one time and you can get off. I don't know. That's where I'm coming from, but you can have your own perspective also. Yeah, so based on what I say, like, what do you think about it? Like the divorce rate out of arranged marriage, whereby
Right,
families
right.
felt more involved into it
Mhm.
and all that, and the thing. The reason why I mentioned about the falling out of love is because of the divorce rate.
Right.
Like you can just wake up one day like, I don't love you anymore, disregarding the fact that you have children together.
Mhm.
That's what hurts me a lot, whereby two individuals, you decided to bring life into the world,
Mm.
right? And through, pretty much well that by divorcing, our children are not going to have the best education they could ever have. Because if the father is on one hand doing his life, leading his own life, and the mother is on the other hand leading her own life, by way you see the child, for example, if the child is with the mother, the mother could get married with another man, and the other man also, you don't know the kind of love that he has toward that child. He could mistreat the child. And on the other hand, also the husband, the father, he could get married with another woman. And how is the woman going to accept the child? So there's already that killer move. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I feel like when the family is involved, all these things really get reduced to a certain extent, whereby there's that protection of the family unit. You see, there's that protection because the family is involved. Everybody will have a certain scrutiny over your marriage. But when it's this Western way of doing, that's when you see like the child when he's growing up is not that stable. You know what I mean? And you see single mothers. That term is pretty much reigning in the abroad. Yeah, that's why I wanted to emphasize on falling out of love and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very important topic. I think that sometimes around marriages, parameters are definitely needed. So back in the days, you had traditional parameters around marriages,
Yeah.
right? Which sort of helped keep it together. And nowadays, you have religious parameters around certain marriages
Yeah.
that help keep it together also. Now, there are pros and cons to everything, I think. So if you look at a situation like that, what would be the pros? The pros, like you mentioned so eloquently, the families are involved. There are many interests at stake. It's not only the couple, right? So you feel the need, the heightened sense to want to work things out when things go south, right? Because it's not just you. There are other people involved. There, maybe your family's reputation. And there are so many things involved, and there is a certain fear of tradition. I cannot go against tradition because I don't know what's going to happen. The different superstitions and all
Yeah.
that. So that makes you want to stay into that marriage and try to make things work out. Now, what are some of the pros that can come out of that situation? If you have kids, they benefit from having their parents stay together.
The family unit.
Because exactly,
Sure.
when things go south, things are not well between mommy and daddy, they will try to work it out. They don't have the freedom that the modern couple has to just say, if it doesn't work out, I'll give you an ultimatum, I'll give you 10 or 20 days. If you don't get this fixed, then we're done.
Then we're done.
They don't have that. They're going to seek to work things out. It's just like having religious parameters around a marriage. What does that do? It tells you, according to Christianity or all the other, some other religion, when a man and a woman gets together, they're actually married in front of God. They've sealed their union in the face of God, and it's a holy thing. So whatever happens, you have to try to sort out that whatever problems that you may have in the future, right? Because of not only because of your love, because of your children, but because there is a higher power who you actually have to answer to, right? And there is that fear that if you go out of wedlock and you get with another man, some parameters around certain religions will actually label that as unchastity,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
So now there's that need to want to fix it. And nowadays there's too much freedom, I think. And in my humble opinion, I think it started in the West. Just the fact that you're giving people too much freedom to do what they want. And freedom is good, of course. And freedom can be used for so many other great things. But in that sense, I feel sometimes when you give people too much freedom, you know, then they misuse it. They will decide to say, okay, I'm free to break up with you. You know, I have no one to answer to. You know, of course, now the pros of that, of the pop culture dynamic, of the pop culture status quo around marriage, is the fact that you're free to fall in love. It's just the two of you. No one's forcing you to do anything, and that's a good thing, right? But now, when things go south, what do you have to keep things together?
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes the vows that you've made to each other might not be enough at the end of the day. That's why I think those parameters around arranged marriages or religious marriages can actually serve people well sometimes.
Yeah. 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 Hey, so just as you know, we're talking of different perspective. You guys have your these are just our humble opinions. Everybody has a right to think otherwise, and yeah. So we're talking about love. Okay. Now let's talk about African love. African love. What's your say on African love based on the pop culture that we have? You know, the movies that we watch, the music that we listen to. You know what I mean? Like right now we're in Africa, you know, it's precisely in the Congo. You know, how has the modern society, you know, your day-to-day influenced the way you feel about love? Like, what'd you say about that?
Okay. I'd like to define it as the best kind of love, but I feel it's unfair to people who are not African, you know, to...
Like African love, the best kind of love.
Of course, I would like to define it as such, but it's a little biased because I'm African.
Of course, sure.
Right? It's a little biased.
Sure.
Because if you're American, or if you're Chinese, or if you're Australian, if you're Canadian, you're going to think your kind of love is the best. Okay? But then, do we really know who the best is, or what the best kind of love is?
We don't.
So,
sure.
In lieu of best, I'm going to use preferred. It's my preferred kind of love.
All right.
Because of, oh my God, because of a myriad reasons. Because of a myriad reasons. I don't know. If I start to enumerate all those reasons, it might take forever. Do you want me to? Like, should we?
Please do. Let's talk about it. We're talking about love. You know,
oh my God.
We're talking about love because love, in a way, nowadays love has become stale. You know, love, like people nowadays is pretty much out of interest. You know, what am I gonna get out of it?
Right.
Now, let us talk about the true sense of love. You know, what love really meant. If I have to say, back in the days, like, what's the true emotion of love? You know what I mean? And why individuals are like me thinking that love is overrated? You know what I mean? Whilst love could also have its own identity. You know, maybe love was meant. You know, you are meant to love to love. You know what I mean? That feeling of love. You know what I mean? So let's talk about it. African love. You know, why do you place it above the rest? Or is there any difference compared to your perspective?
I'm not going to place it above the rest, but I will state that it's my preferred kind of love. Because I believe that true love and the African kind is based in a lot of mysticism.
Love mysticism.
It is definitely based in mysticism. It's not just love. I feel like the African kind of love, and I don't know about the other kinds because I'm not from those parts of the world, so I can only speak about Africa. But I feel like it goes beyond the physical.
It goes beyond the physical.
Yes,
all right.
It delves into the spiritual.
All right.
That's what African love is. So when two people fall in love, I believe in the spiritual world is actually acknowledged. Especially when the rites, R-I-T-E-S, have been observed in terms of lobola, or as they call it in the West, the dowry.
Sure.
Especially when those things have been observed. I think that the spirits who actually run or who are in charge of both families will actually come in agreement, you know, and sometimes not. Sometimes if a union is not desired by certain members of the families, okay, or their ancestors, that's when you will see that couple having so many problems to where maybe they cannot bear children, or they have a myriad financial problems or any other kinds of problems. But then the source of that is in the spiritual, and it all stems from what the couple considers to be love.
Oh, okay. Love, 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 love. Love from an African perspective. How am I going to place it from an African perspective? The African love, without the influences that we had, that we have now with the pop culture, with this global village that the world has become. How can I classify the African love? The African love, just like you said, the mysticism behind it. You know, the African love, I feel like through the music and everything, I feel like the African love, in a way, is lost. Why am I gonna say it's lost? Because I can't really think of an African love, because most of my experience of love has some Europeanized fantasies over it. Like the fact that we Africans haven't consumed Africa that much, which in a way I would say it's a huge shame for Africans. As an African, we're supposed to stay true to our identity, but unfortunately we are in a way losing that DNA. You know, we're losing that DNA because just like you said, like back in the days, like people when they used to get married, you know, there was that connection. You know, even though we've kept certain culture like paying like the dowry, you know, lobola, you know, meeting up on that traditional wedding, you know, it still holds, but the practice, you know, how things were done back in the days compared to how things are not getting done nowadays. And I feel like we Africans, we are in a way getting disconnected to our African heritage. You know, we are pretty much embracing more the European way of loving. You know, the wedding, even you see the way we dress during our weddings, you know, while wearing the white gowns, you know, going to church, for instance, you know, putting the ring on the finger, you know what I mean, and going to the mayor, you know, to sign certain papers, you know what I mean, like okay, we are registering our wedding under certain reference, under certain number, given a certain date.
Right.
You know, that in a way I feel like that's not us. That's not the African way. That's not how we used to love. You know what I mean? From what I know, the African love was that innocent love, whereby when you love a certain individual, you know, you're coming from the river, your wife, she's coming from with the calabash on their head, and you, the man, you're with the cows, for instance, if I have to use the term, and you call her sitting under the tree, you know, having a chit chat, you know what I mean, writing your initials on the tree, you know, or maybe like digging and putting certain stones as a reference of your love. You know, all those practices that we used to have as Africans, that is dwindling, you know, based on what we consume. You know, the music, the European ways, the movies that we watch, the global village that we're becoming via social media, you know, Instagram, TikTok, all these things is influencing us. And we, instead of fighting against that, we're pretty much, it's so unfortunate that what back in the days, of course, we're not talking from a victim point of view, but we're just going to talk about the impact of colonialism. We're not talking out of a victim point of view, but we're just talking about the impact of colonialism, because the impact of colonialism made us believe that our African ways was wrong. Our African ways was demonized. You know what I mean? Like back in the days, if I was sick, I would go consult a witch doctor, which was normal. You know, if I loved a certain person, I would go and see a witch doctor, for instance, you know, a fortune teller. I'll say, I love this person. What is this person thinking about me? Those are our African ways, the practices, the Nsangomas, the Monama Kambos, if I have to use the Lingala term. Yeah, but then, yeah, the Nsangomas, we used to consult them, like, I love this person here. What? But then, what the Western way has told us, what all your African practices is evil. You know what I mean? And we Africans, even till this day, we still feel like, I don't want to do this. This is too African. This is embarrassing. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I cannot do that. You see, even giving to a point, like, even me, like, I will speak from my own experience also, you know, like, you feel like even naming your children a certain African name, like, no, I can't do that. You know, my name, my son's name or my daughter's name should be, you know, in a way, you know, Europeanized, if I have to say, more appealing to the common thing. Like, in a way, we are totally just deriving from our African ways. So, like, just like I say earlier on, like, the African love, I cannot really speak. I can't speak from the African love. I don't have that experience to a certain extent. But I know what it felt. And it was, you know, just like you said, each one of us shared their point of view. Our humble opinion, like, it was special. You know what I mean? Just the African vibe around it, you know. We cannot say any further, but I just feel like the African love is dwindling. Like, it's really dying. Yeah, that's it.
So, what was I saying? I'm still quite taken aback in a positive manner when I hear people talk about the lobola or the traditional wedding as being the true wedding. I mean, I've still heard people even here in the Congo talk about it. So there's the traditional wedding and there's the formal wedding, right? But for most people, at least according to what I've heard, once they've gone past the traditional wedding, they consider that to be the real thing. Because then the other one is the formal one. It's not truly African in identity or in DNA. Has that been your experience? I don't mean to.
Of course.
Yeah. Have you heard people actually?
Yeah, sure. Of course. Everybody.
Call that the true wedding.
The majority of people cherish the traditional wedding. You know, they really cherish the tradition. They feel like the traditional wedding is the most important wedding instead of going to the state and all that. Like, once you're married traditionally, like, you see there's pretty much a significant, a contingent amount of people who, by where their link has stopped via traditional wedding. You know, most of them is okay. Once we've already been traditional married, that's enough for us. You know what I mean? You know, our family came together with that family unit. We came together. We had the festivities and all that, and that's where we stopped. Yeah, but then, yeah, there's some people. People really, so they really value the traditional wedding. Yeah.
So this is one thing that I would like to advise most people, especially if you're African. The world we live in is a modern world, and it is.
You can address to your camera.
Yeah, the world we live in is a modern world, and the status quo is dictated by the West. We are constantly, on a daily basis, bombarded by images about how to live a Western kind of lifestyle. Now, sometimes we claim we seek to embrace our African identity, but our subconscious is constantly fed by this westernized kind of lifestyle. And we then go on to adopt and adapt that lifestyle to our everyday reality. Now, if we don't constantly, it's just like what we're doing here right now. You have to constantly talk about being black. It's not just a normal thing that you know, given the modern world we're living right now, it's hard to just naturally expect people to be African. Because what does it mean?
What does it mean?
Don't even know what it really means to be African.
What does it mean to be African?
It's hard to just expect people to be African and act African. We have to constantly have those discussions. What does it mean to be African? Okay? What are some of the things that a person who considers himself an African do on a daily basis? You talked about naming your child. How many Africans actually do that?
Yeah.
If you think you're truly African, how many Africans actually go out of the way? Because that's what it comes down to, right? You can talk, but when it comes to the things that actually affect you as an individual
Yeah.
and your immediate surrounding, are you then ready to be African? Because it's easy to talk
It's
sometimes.
easy to talk.
Oh, I'm African. Oh, I do this, I do that. But when it comes, when that time comes to take the decision that will directly impact you
Yeah.
or your immediate surrounding, are you still ready to be African? Are
Yeah.
you still ready to fully accept and embrace that Africanism? That's what it comes down to. That's what the true African is.
That's what a true African is.
Because if you can't do that, then I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard. So to be honest with you, and that's why these kind of conversations are necessary. This kind of conversation, in a way, it's a way of like cleansing our track of thoughts. You know, cleaning them out, washing all these Europeanized way of thinking, if I have to use a term.
Right.
You know, but the fact that if we don't speak of it often, you know, it will keep on eating on our souls. You know, and day by day, we will be only African by name, but not by the way we live. You know, it will just be the name that you have. You're African, but what makes you African? What makes you African? What is it that I can identify as an African if it's not the color of your skin? You know what I mean? So, which is why it's necessary that we hold these kind of conversations. We should talk about how to be black. Why are we black? Our ancestors' ways of doing, our African culture, like those are very important topics that we should talk about. These kind of conversations should be prominent in the African continent, by which from generations to generations our children can also be in position to speak about how to be Africa, because we are the current generation. In case we stop talking about Africa, we are going to, in a way, erase a certain heritage, and our children, when they grow, it's gonna get worse to a point whereby the true identity of Africa will not be known, will be a far, you know, it will be a far-fetched story now. It will become like a fable. You know, you don't really know what to talk about Africa when you hear about Africa. You're right. So, yeah, so it's up to us, the generation of today, to talk about Africa. Let's preach Africa, African love, African ways of doing, African practice. It's very, very, very necessary, not only for us, but our future generations.
True that.
And obviously, we'll make our ancestors proud, right? So, what are the African movies that impacted you?
African movies that impacted me? There are quite a few. I don't think Africans make enough movies.
Africans don't make enough movies, unfortunately. Yeah.
But the movies that impacted me are mostly Zimbabwean. You know, I will talk about movies like Neria.
Neria, okay.
With the deceased musical legend Oliver Mtukudzi.
Okay.
I will talk about Yellow Card. Yellow Card was a pretty good
Yellow
movie,
Card.
especially since everything is an African.
Yeah,
love, I think.
sure.
It had a pretty beautiful theme of African youth love. And there are a few other movies.
All right.
But I'd like to talk about the series. You know, the Shaka Zulu series.
Shaka
I feel
Zulu.
like in its own way, it depicted love in quite a beautiful way.
Oh yeah, Shaka Zulu really depicted love. For you guys who haven't watched Shaka Zulu, I encourage you to watch Shaka Zulu. It really, yeah, it's really, it's the only African movie that, from what I can say, is the only African movie that has really depicted the African, the African heritage. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about African love. Do you remember the scene when Senza Akona was hitting on Nandi? That scene.
Yeah.
You know, just the environment.
Right.
That's African love.
Right.
You know, where he was coming from hunting, right?
Mm.
He had that animal, and when he saw her, you know, he started doing some certain lamentations. He started singing for her.
Right.
You know, and that's the core of African love.
It's that meet me at
Beautiful,
the river
man.
scene, right?
Sorry.
It's that meet me at the river. African
Exactly.
theme.
Meet me at the river scene. You see that, just a man, doing all his praises towards the women that he loves.
Right.
So it's beautiful, man. So those are the movies that, I'll also do with Yellow Card, the Zimbabwean Yellow Card, More Time, and Neria.
Yeah,
Beautiful
that sounds-
movies.
that sounds a good one.
All right, guys. So we've talked about love. So this is we'll say probably this could be our. We can go long. We could have gone longer and longer and longer and longer and longer because there's a lot to be said about love in general and the African love and all that. So we encourage you to love your country. Love your country. Love where you come from. Cherish your heritage. Be proud of your identity. Don't shy away from who you are because it's very necessary. Because that's what makes the beauty of the world. Different cultures coming together. You don't want to end up in a position whereby you meet with a European and the European asks you, okay, what is Africa out of you? And you're not in position to tell them about Africa. And we are getting closer to that part, to there, because it's getting very, very, and it's not what we want. It's very risky. So where we come from, we encourage you to consume Africa, so that when you meet with different ethnicities, when we meet with different races, you are all in position to talk about where you come from. A Western person will tell you about his stories. You Africans, you tell about them stories. An Asian person will tell you about his stories. And that's what makes the beauty of this world. That's what makes the beauty of the human race.
Right.
So we encourage you to speak, stay true to your identity, stay African, talk about love, and that's what we are. All right. We are at the Gentlemen's Club. So that was it about today. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think we had a great conversation. There's definitely so much more that we could have said, but this was great. I feel like every occasion we have to actually remind people the importance of being themselves and
All right. So that's it for the night of today. We thank you. Stay tuned.